In today's video, we're going to be doing a little sit down and talk video because there are no events on today. I'm not driving any events and I'm still waiting on parts to arrive for my S13. So I thought sitting down and talking to you guys about the 10 things I wish I knew before I started drifting might be helpful if you are wanting to get into drifting, and maybe you can take these and apply them to all kinds of motorsport. I did think about doing a how to get sponsored video or tips and tricks on how to get sponsored, but we're going to run with the 10 things I wish I knew for today's video, but let me know if you are interested in that how to get sponsored video as well. The first thing I wish I knew is exactly how much work a drift car requires, and that's to do with working on them and maintenance. Most important thing, whether you have a stock drift car you're using your daily, or you have a built drift car like mine, or an even more built drift car, it would be do your maintenance. So I'm talking things like oil changes. They are the most important thing that you can do for your car. So engine oil, frequently, I change mine with this setup every 2 events, and that's because the E85 thins it out so much that it no longer is doing its job correctly. So oil changes in your engine. Then moving back to your gearbox oil changes, they don't need to be changed as frequently, so I change those every, depends how many events in the month. Next, moving on, is your diff oil. Again, it doesn't require to be changed as much. I'd change it probably as frequently as your gearbox oil. Next thing is working on them. Now, whether you have a stock car or a built car, they all require maintenance on and off the track. So things you'll need to learn, and I didn't know I need to learn, is how often problems arise at the track and how often you're diagnosing them. And if you don't have your ECU there, or you don't have a computer, or you can't get into your computer, any of those reasons, you need to learn how to diagnose issues by sounds and what is happening. So like if you have a stock car, that would be a lot more simple. You'd be looking at like spark issues, or if you have a turbo car, vac line issues, just really simple things like that. But then moving on to a built car, it can get a lot more things to look at as well, like learning how to identify the difference between something fuel related and something electronic related versus something vac line or vacuum related. Second thing I wish I knew before I started drifting is not using too many driver aids / overbuilding your car. Now, going back to when I first started drifting, I had this S13 here with a CA18 in it with just a very basic whatever I could find turbo plus T, so it was NA plus T setup. It did have a hydro, but the hydro didn't work, so it ended up just having a stock handbrake. So starting out drifting with things like a stock handbrake and like, you know, as stock lockers you can get maybe some simple rack spaces or something really simple like that, really helps you learn how to drive the car better in the beginning. And also driving with less power really helps you learn how to control the throttle more and control your driving a lot more. I used to really enjoy drifting my S13 with the CA18 in it. It did blow up the first time, so I did forge the internals, but anyway, we were still running around 350 horsepower, so it wasn't much. Then I had one of my mates, he put me onto rack spacers because I was new to drifting. I had no clue what a rack spacer was or how it worked. He installed some rack spacers for me and showed me how to do it, and I went out drifting for, you know, a good couple of months to a year with just, you know, 300 horsepower and some rack spacers, and I was having heaps of fun. But the only problem was I was new to drifting and I didn't know anyone, so tires was hard to afford, trailers was hard to afford. But yeah, just getting started with something really, really basic. Can't remember now, maybe around 2021, 2022, that I decided, okay, it's blown up twice now. I'm gonna go build another motor and put it in my S13. But that took so many years. That took like 2 years, and I ended up putting it in a different car, and then I pulled it out of that car, and it was a lot of work when really I could have just rebuilt the CA again and kind of made do with that setup for a little bit longer and learnt some more things. So definitely, if you do have a stock car, you might look at these guys with like big horsepower cars and think they're having so much fun, but you're probably having more fun in your stock or small power car than we are. Third thing that I wish I knew before I started drifting was don't run your stuff at 100%. So if you've got an engine that's capable of 500 horsepower max and you run it at 500 horsepower max every day, I wouldn't recommend that. Same as if your gearbox can only handle 350 horsepower and you run it at 350 every day. You can, but I wouldn't recommend that, and I wish I knew that. It would have saved me so many gearboxes, and I think I blew 3 of those up in the span of like a year and a half. I was just running it as much as it could handle, so it just kept breaking. Again, with the don't run things at 100%, we'll take my father's Cleveland 351 Cleveland, for example. He's been running that thing for years, and it's been going really well, NA for so many years, never skipped a beat. And then he decided, hey, I'm gonna put a turbo on it. And his first event out there with a turbo on it, it completely blew up and shattered to pieces and is now just an expensive paperweight. So let that be another example. Pushing more and more power is not always a good idea. Fourth thing that I wish I knew before I got into drifting is your chassis selection. So obviously if you already have the car, this won't apply to you, but if you are looking at building a car or going and buying a car, I would advise looking at cars that have parts already made on the shelf or a lot of to help you with your maintenance. So for example, cars like your Silvias, Skylines, 350Zs, and even now, I don't like them, the AUs even have a lot of on the shelf parts now that you can buy, like lock mods and things like that. And as well, like body panels, like all the fiberglass stuff you can get, you can get it for the 350Zs, all those kinds of Japanese cars. So just look into what's available for the chassis you want to do. The fifth thing I wish I knew before I started drifting is exactly how much work goes into organizing drift events. Now I'm saying this because things might happen on the day, like you don't know where you're going, or it's hard to find information, or someone said you can do this, or someone said you can't do that, things like that that create frustration. And then the people that you want to get angry at are the track staff. In saying this, I've been around a lot of drift events now, and I've seen so many of them, and I know so many of the staff. It is most of the time when things happen, it is not their fault or it's a miscommunication. So definitely just try and be respectful to staff. I used to go drifting at Queensland Raceway a long time ago, back in 2019 was the first year I went drifting at Queensland Raceway, and it used to be a whole different track out there. Yeah, there was a lot less respect for the amenities back then, and now fast forward to 6 years on, the track is thriving and the staff are thriving, and people have kind of learned like a lot about respect. I think, yeah, the fifth thing I wish I knew is just how complicated it is to organize a drift event, and things can go wrong with maybe where they tell you to park, where they tell you to go, and I too have been frustrated not knowing where to go and not knowing where to park. Walk up to your local track staff and ask. That is definitely my best advice for you. The sixth thing I wish I knew before I started drifting is don't build a car you can't afford to maintain. So I myself have fallen victim to this when I first built my JZ S13. I didn't quite realize how expensive it was going to cost on my oil, my fuel, my tires, my axles, my maintenance. I did not realize how expensive. Oh, and as well, it's not registered. So my trailer hire, and then the fuel for the tow car. Those expenses are so absurd every time I go out to the track that I didn't quite realize what I was getting myself into. Whereas my old CA18 S13 setup, that was street registered. So drive there, drive home. A lot less maintenance, I could fit 4 tires in the back and that'd do me. I'd be fine. Every time I step foot in those gates, I've spent more than $1,000 to be there. Whether it's a 4-hour event or an all-day event or a Matsuri. And that's not something I really factored in or expected when I did build this car. The seventh thing I wish I knew before I started drifting is actually how hard it is to drift. Like, I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, I drifted this, I drifted that, and they I don't condone this, but they half drift around the corner in the wet, or they half flick the back out. That is not drifting. That is not even close. Imagine you going right. It's so easy to go right and to get it to go right, but getting it to go left and not spin around in a circle, that's the hard part. And then going right again without spinning around and constantly learning how to go from left to right, that is really hard to actually learn. Definitely don't condone anything street related. It's just how hard it was and how long of a process it was, because by the time for me when I could go to the track and then have that month break and afford to go back out to the track again, it's like I'd forgotten everything I'd learnt last month. And it wasn't until a couple of months later that it started clicking and I started linking one corner and then I started linking 2 corners, and then by the time you've linked 2 corners, you're kind of getting a bit faster, and then that 3rd corner is a bit harder to link because you're carrying so much speed. And if you are feeling like really wanting to give up on drifting's not for me, I felt like that hundreds of times before. Just set yourself little goals, because I still remember that one day, that one morning, my mates at the time, they nagged me to go out to this, it was at Archerfield, this open track morning. And I was so scared because there's no lineups. You just drove out into the track and everyone's out there and they're all going around, and it's very chaotic, but it teaches you to drive better. And they convinced me to do that. I went out there, and when I started linking that track, it was like a whole nother feeling. It was made it worth it in the long run. And definitely stepping outside your comfort zone. Again, I would only ever go to events at Archerfield with lineups where they would let one car go at a time. Whereas when I went on this open track Saturday morning day, I knew there were cars behind, I knew there were cars in front, so I had to go. I couldn't stop and get scared. So it definitely, getting out of my comfort zone helped me learn a lot better and a lot quicker as well. The 8th thing I wish I knew when I started drifting is how to be social and not be scared of everyone. So going out there, I was like scared to talk to people, and I kind of let them just come up to me and talk to me, and that's how I made my acquaintances. But moving on to these last few years where I've really been going out there, I've learned a lot more to just walk up to people and just have a chat to them and just talk to them, because we're all out there for the same reasons as one another, and everyone out there is quite happy to have a chat every time. So if I could go back in time, I definitely would have reached out and spoken to a lot more people instead of just standing there all scared, because it is a lot more fun if you've got friends, if you've got people you know, even if you just got people you only see when you go to the track. You don't have to be so in depth with them. If you just got a friendly face you see at the track, it makes driving so much more fun and enjoyable when you get to drive with someone else and you both hop out and you're like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. Like that is so much fun. I think one of my recent videos I posted, I got to drive with this car that I googly-eyed at every Matsuri since forever. And then just one night we were just out there and I was like googly-eyeing his car, and he came over and had a chat. So it was really good. It was one of the best nights I had drifting. And then fast forward as well, I met one of my subscribers off YouTube out the track as well, and we got talking, and now we organize to go drifting all the time together. That you might have seen him on my channel, Paul with the 2JZ Safiro. He just came up to me at an event and just started talking, and ever since then we kind of organized to go out tandem driving together. And that was who you also seen in my tandem driving video where we went out with Nathan and Aiden, which are Nathan I'd never met in my life until I filmed that video. I'd never met him, and that was the first night I met him. So, you know, just things like that. Definitely just putting yourself out there, saying hi to someone, talking to people at the track. The 9th thing I wish I knew before I started drifting is it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I'll briefly touch on that in this video, but that will fit more into my how to get sponsored video. But basically, this goes hand in hand with, again, maintaining your car, getting those connections and friends and people who know people who know people who can help you get to the track easier. So for instance, my trailer that I hire now, he is someone that I met along the way, and he offered to hire it to me. So I get a cheap trailer, whereas I used to just hire them from the servos for a lot more expensive. So in turn, I've got saved money on trailer hire. I can put that money into the actual event itself, or saving for maintenance. Just as well, if you know someone who can get you cheap tires or who has a tire machine at their shop. Yeah, I don't want to touch too much into it. I could go so in depth because this is a really important topic for sponsorships as well, but I basically wouldn't have all of this if it wasn't for the connections that I made. And you know, some of these sponsors I picked up just by talking to someone at my workplace. So really putting yourself out there and just talking to people and connecting with people is one of the things I wish I knew in the beginning, because it probably would have helped fast track my driving a lot more, my ability to maintain the car, and I wouldn't have ran into as many money struggles as I did. The 10th thing and last thing I wish I knew before I started drifting is how much a sim drift setup can help you. Now, this might not be for everyone, but if you do have a PC at home and you can afford to get yourself a direct drive wheel and pedals, it'll set you back like, I don't know, $1,000 for the wheels and pedals and a rig set up to hold your wheels and pedals. But if you can do that, it will help you, because then you don't have to pay for maintenance and you can just jump on there for an hour a night and just practice the motion, getting used to like letting your hand go and like when to grab the wheel, getting used to tandem driving and things like that. I didn't have a sim set up until like maybe the last year and a half. It's good. It helps you learn. Me, I find it a bit hard to get used to there not being like the feeling of motion, because my sim's just a computer screen and just me like this. So just getting used to like not being able to feel the motion and learning how to like transition and learning how to tandem. I still use the sim to try and get comfortable with like being near people in game, so I can put that into real life, because I still get scared about being close to people because I don't want to damage their car, obviously. But definitely, if you can, if you're in Brisbane, I'm not sure about Sydney or wherever else you are. I know Brisbane here, we have VR MOTOSPORTS, which is a place. They do have charity days run by Safety Drive for Youth, I think it's called, where they do a free 4-hour sim session. So you just turn up and they try and filter through people. It's just for mental health and charity and raising money. So if you are in Brisbane, keep an eye out for those. You can kind of hop in a sim and feel that. Those sims do have motion. If not, have a look in your local area. Wherever you are, there might be a simulator place you can go to just have a go and see if you want to put the money into one of those before you go and buy a drift car. Finishing on the sim, if you can, it's definitely a good investment. So that is all for the 10 things I wish I knew before I started drifting. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and if you guys can think of anything that you've experienced, whether it's in drifting or any other forms of motorsport that you want to let people know, drop it down in the comments. We can all give each other tips and tricks. Let me know if you found this useful or helpful or enjoyed the video. Let me know if you do want me to make that how to get sponsored video. I'd be interested in making that as well in between building cars if you guys wanted to see that. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.